Welcome back to another Sunday swim here at Matty Fish 33. I'm sorry that I'm a little behind schedule here today. I was hoping that this would be another fun Sunday swim, but for me, this isn't exactly a fun Sunday swim, guys. I hate to say it, but this has been a bad week in fish keeping. Had a couple of deaths for some unforeseen instances, and we're going to talk about that today, I guess. Originally when I set this live stream up and I posted it as the cube is in quarantine, which that's the cube, it's currently undergoing a water change. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But originally it was posted as the cube is in quarantine. Well, so lost a few fish in the cube this week. Unfortunately, one of them was a pretty big loss. Well, actually two of them, I guess. Fish can be replaced, but as a fish keeper, I really don't like having to replace fish, and it doesn't happen often for me, but like I said in the beginning of the video, today was a bad week in fish keeping for me, and we're going to talk about that. So, I've been showing you, since we started this live stream, I've been showing you our beautiful 155-gallon African cichlid tank. Don't worry, guys. For those of you that have been following along, these guys are doing just fine. This tank is not the issue. So we'll talk about this tank a little bit more later on in the live stream. Let's talk about the issues and what's been going on first. Alright. So as I said, we're currently undergoing a water change on the cube. Let me turn this light on real quick, give you guys a little bit easier of a view. So we're undergoing a water change on this tank right now. So there's a few guys that were in this tank and they're no longer with us right now. Our two smaller silver dollars have passed. Our blue carpintus has passed. And again, as I was a little bit late for this live stream, I was trying some last minute things, trying to save one last person, or fish I should say. And unfortunately, I think now at this point, our fire eel is no more either. So, what happened? What do I think went wrong? What could I have done better as a fish keeper? As many of you guys know, my forte when it comes to fish keeping for a long time has been African cichlids, and I started venturing back into American cichlids and, branching out in other ways. When I reset up this cube, I wanted to do American cichlid tank. The fire eel was going to be the centerpiece of the tank, and unfortunately now we're at the stage where we're going to have to wait a bit and see how everything shakes out in this system, and then we will probably eventually get another fire eel, but it's going to be a little bit before we do that. So what happened in here? What went wrong from what I know at this point? Okay, so might be hard to see because a lot of these fish are recovering. Actually, you see some of this driftwood really moved during this water change, guys. But anyways, a lot of these fish are recovering from what was going on in this tank. And some of them actually weren't ever really affected. Now, our Geophagus here was slightly affected, and Also, I have to deal with another issue over here. For some reason, my battery bank has begun overloading. I don't know. I had gotten a new heater for over there, and I thought that was what was causing it. Now my battery bank's overloading. So, I don't know. Again, really bad week in fish keeping, guys. Still trying to figure some of this out. So, what went wrong over here? Excuse the beeping. It should stop in a minute. What went wrong over here? Well, so as you can see, some of these fish were not quite as affected as others, obviously. Our Geophagus here has a couple of white spots still, but they're going away. So, about 4 or 5 days ago, probably about 5 now at this point, I noticed that there was some ick on a couple of the fish. First fish I noticed it on was our red Severum, and our red Severum is doing fine, actually. He's up there, as you can see. So immediately what I did was I raised the water temperature to speed up the life cycle of the ick, and I added some salt. I think the reason that this happened is because I tried to keep this tank a little cooler at first, compared to my African tanks, which are kept between 79 and 82 degrees. And when you keep a tank that warm, it doesn't exactly allow the ick life cycle to become prevalent, because it speeds up the life cycle of the ick very much. I don't care what anybody says. They can say your tank's completely ick free. I guarantee you that's not true. Things like ick and epistalis, they live in our water column, guys, and you know, they're almost always there, whether they're an issue or not. The issue is whether or not your beneficial bacteria is consuming this fast enough. So one of two things probably happened in this aquarium, that being said. So we're actually going to have to restart the sump here very soon. Let me just check on that real quick before I don't get too distracted. All right, we have about another inch, and then we're gonna have to restart the sump and everything in this tank. But as I was saying, whether you like to believe it or not, ick and epistalis is almost always living in your water column. Again, like I said, it's just a matter of whether you have enough beneficial bacteria and they are eliminating before it is trying to find a fish host, for that matter. Well, I think that part of the issue with this being a newer tank and a newer setup, that wasn't happening fast enough in this tank. And I think my biggest issue was that I did not, again, I tried to keep this as a cooler water tank than my Africans. My Africans, 78 to 81 degrees, or 79 to 82 degrees. But I was trying to keep this tank between 74 and 76 degrees originally. Albeit that's fine for the fish, but I probably should have waited until this aquarium was a little bit more established to do so. So it caused some issues with ick. And as I said earlier in this live stream, it was not a very happy week to be a fish keeper. And here we are. Let me go ahead and check one more time. I don't want to get... Yep, alright, so we should probably turn on our filtration. Hold on, guys. Alright. So, just in case you don't know what I keep doing, what's your question, Kason? Alright, so we've now turned our filtration back on, and a little bit of the overflow was going down. We're doing good in that sense. So, go ahead and ask me what your question was, Kason. I'm sorry if I was a little bit late responding to that. Maybe I was, perhaps. Do fish blink? I don't think so. I don't think that, I mean, some fish have I wouldn't say eyelids, more of like a membrane that covers their eyes and protects their eyes, but no, Kason, I'm sorry, but I don't believe fish blink, and I don't think that even if, some fish that appear to be blinking, I don't think that you could really equivocate that to blinking. But anyways, so we're almost done doing this water change. What I had done was I had raised the temperature in this tank. Things were going good after the outbreak for the first few days. And then I started noticing some additional issues. At first, let's just be very, hold on, I gotta go turn this water off, guys. At first, to be very frank though, our fire eel was doing okay. The fish, one of the fish that passed was the fish that had gotten it the worst, so to speak, and that was the electric blue carpintis. I kind of, once I first started noticing what was going on in the tank, I kind of, was not too surprised when that was what ended up transpiring. My biggest concern was obviously the fire eel. It's a scaleless fish. Very hard to treat these types of issues when they happen. Again, guys, this is the first fire eel I've had in a long time. I did previously have a fire eel, as I've told you guys before, but when I had said previous fire eel, I never had an issue in the aquarium that individual fish was in. No case on. Unfortunately, the fire eel is not okay. Just to answer your question fully, I think I kind of started talking about it earlier in this video, but or live stream for that matter. Right before I started the live stream, we were a little late because I was doing some emergency on the fire eel. So let's kind of get into that a little bit more as we talk about the way these things transpired in this tank. So, like I said, a few days and everything was mostly okay. We raised the temperature up to about 81, 82 degrees, trying to keep it around there. Didn't want to stress these fish out too much, given the fact that they were being kept at about 75 degrees. But we wanted to speed up the cycle of the ick. And so we did that and monitored for a couple days, and things seemed to be getting a little bit better. We also treated with a little bit of sea salt to raise the salinity up, help with slime coats, and also a few other things. Sorry, this battery bank is beeping again. I need to figure that out too. Seems like a little bit of unraveling this week. I'm sorry, guys. It happens to the best of us, though. I'm not gonna lie. As you can clearly see, for those of you that have been following for a long time, you know that this is really the first time I've ever had any type of issue in my systems. But again, it does happen. Not everything is always perfect. That being said, so we had raised up the temperature, added some salinity to the tank in the hopes that it was going to start curtailing this ick that had seemed to come out of nowhere. And for the most part, it was at first. And then I noticed that it was starting to affect our fire eel, which very, very not good. As some of you may know, fire eels are scaleless fish. They have a very thick slime coat, but that often kind of saves them in some of these instances, but that is not what happened in this instance. And our fire eel eventually had picked up some of the ick as well. And as I raised the salinity a little bit more, I think that me not wanting to do a water change just yet because it is a newer system and shock that system fully. In hindsight, I probably should have did that earlier than today. Mostly I say that because there are ways around shocking your system in that sense, because I have plenty of prime, I have plenty of stability, and I have plenty of stress coat. But it made me nervous, and I really wanted to wait because I was trying to see what was going on with the fire reel. And as of this morning, when I got up, um, our fire reel was not in very good shape. Hey, Dane, cichlid hub. But our fire reel was not in very good shape when I first laid eyes on him this morning. And so what I did was, what I tried to do was give him a little bit of a salt bath in his own bucket with some of the tank water. And one thing I must say, to be completely transparent and honest, I did use a little bit of Icex in the tank, which I know is a very hard thing to do for some of these fish. Now, I didn't use one with malachite or formaldehyde. I was trying to alleviate some of the stress on our fire eel, which is a scaleless fish, so this has a much more of an irritating effect for that type of fish. And I even didn't do a full dose. I did about a third of the recommended dose in order to try and curtail some of that, but still get some of the benefits. Guys, I mean, I've been a big proponent for a long time. I don't like using chemicals, and I don't use them often, and this is why. So what ended up happening was overnight, because the first time I had treated with this was yesterday evening. Our fire eel was kind of sluggish at the time already, but just chilling, breathing a little labored, but more so because of the ick and raising the water temperature up, lowering the oxygen, which we did add some bubblers in to try and get more oxygen in before. First time myself too, Dane. Normally when I treat for ick, I just raise the temperature, make the water a little bit salty, and it runs its course and it goes away and there's no problems. But I think it took a little long to raise it in this instance, or I waited too long to do so. But anyways, so I had used the ick remedy at like a third of the recommended dose to try and curtail some of the harshness of it to our fire eel. Again, I've had a fire eel before, but I've never dealt with this type of issue while keeping a fire eel. I've been keeping fish for a long time. This is probably maybe only the second or third time that I can recall that I've ever had to deal with this sort of issue with any of my fish. That being said, guys, it's been very difficult in that sense. So just to recap again, we lost our two smaller silver dollars, which were inexplicably doing fine. They're not quite a scaleless fish, but they do have very small and finite scales, and I think that was part of the reason why this remedy kind of affected them in an adverse way as well. Our Carpintis, one thing I will say though, that is a manufactured fish. It's manufactured through breeding, and when they are younger, just kind of like an electric blue Jack Dempsey, same type of deal. When those types of fish are younger, they don't quite have, in my opinion, as strong of an immune system as some of their natural counterparts. Thank you, K-Sun, I appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. Fly high fishies. So that being said, it's been a tough week, and a very tough pill to swallow this week. And so now we've done our water change, and we have added some carbon, which I very rarely do. I'm only using it for the one and only instance that I really add carbon to my tanks, and that is to remove the rest of this BS ick remedy that killed my fire eel. mostly due to my own negligence in one sense, guys. I'm sorry, we're not perfect. This is, like I said to all of you guys all this time, that, you know, doing this is always a learning process, no matter how long you've been doing it. I mean, some of us, like myself, can go years without any issues in your tanks or anything, and then just one variable can pop up out of the blue, and it becomes a very humbling, and it becomes a very large teaching point in this hobby. Very difficult, though, guys. Very difficult to deal with. But, you know, it does happen. Yeah, exactly. You're right there, Dane. Win some, lose some, trial and error. 100% correct in that sense. You know, like I said, you know, this is always a learning process for all of us. Not all of us may experience these issues, and some of us that, you know, do this may never experience these issues. And really, a lot of it has to do with the systems that you do keep, the type of environments they are. Sometimes it has to do with the size of the fish you keep, your stocking levels. There are so many variables. Kason says he lost some fish to an accident too. I'm sorry to hear that, Kason. It's up to you if you prefer to comment or not on what may have happened with your fish. But like I said, guys, I mean, there's so many variables to this, and, you know, you can't always get it perfect, and, you know, here we are. So while we're at it, let's talk about some other things that have gone on this week and try and focus on a little bit more of the good that happened this week in the fish gallery. Oh, because your mom thought straight sink water would be fine. Yeah, that's a problem, Kason. You always want to treat your water, unless you have like RODI water. You might not quite understand what that means, but it's a reverse osmosis water system. Some people have it, most people do not. But, you know, you always want to treat your water with some type of dechlorinator, and also an additional bit of beneficial bacteria anytime you're doing a water change, or that could very quickly be the result. So guys, let's talk about some of the less disheartening things that have gone on in the fish gallery this week. Excuse me. Sorry, I have a little bit of gas. So let's look at the rack real fast. So Shortcake is back up here. Kind of as I had talked about earlier in probably the last two Sunday swims. One when I first mentioned the move of these fish and her. You know, I said that it was going to be a breeding project. We wanted to see how it may or may not work out. And after, you know, a week of observation, these two seem to prefer each other a lot more than having a menage a trois for all intents and purposes. So I have since removed her. They were actually kind of getting at her a little bit, and she's got a little bit of nips on her fins. She's going to be just fine though. She just needs some few days and some time to recover in here on her own. But I have seen, it's been about 2 days since I removed Shortcake and put her back up in quarantine, and she'll move back out to the 112 once I feel like she's healed up enough. So these guys, though, they have been showing a little bit more interest in each other, so we'll kind of see. I'm going to monitor this over the course of the next week and see how things go. If it seems like it's heading the direction that we might get some breeding, I'll give it another week. If it doesn't really seem to have much change or improvement in that sense, I think that we are going to go ahead and just move everybody back to the 112, and we are going to figure out a different breeding project. Maybe I'll get a colony, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Or we might try a different set of fish in my collection currently. Our 112 been doing very well. We did a cleaning video on our sump yesterday. If you missed that, go check that out. Yes, Dane, it is definitely a male and a female. Here, we'll touch back on this real quick since you did ask. So this is a female OB peacock. I've had her for about 15 or so months. I think all in all, the fish is probably about 1.5 years to maybe 2 years old, somewhere in that time frame. And this fish, the true OB, I've had him since he was about 1 inch long, and definitely a male, I believe. But FR, what do you mean? Are you saying for real or? Oh, yeah. And then this guy, I'm pretty certain that he's a male as well here. So it's just a matter of, this is the first time these two were separated from the rest of the gang by themselves. Yes, Kason, so that is true. Most female fishes do not get as brightly colored. However, umbunas can be the exception to that in the world of African cichlids, and there are also a few outliers that are exceptions to that in the world of African cichlids. When I originally was mentioning that females don't normally get more brighter coloration, that is generally with your haps and your peacocks, which is why this female umbuna hybrid, so it's a peacock umbuna hybrid, that's why she's really faded out, because she is a hybrid of a true umbuna and a hybrid of some type of peacock or hap. I'm not really sure which. Didn't buy her as a known. But if that further explains it a little bit better, I hope that it does for you, Kason. But so the 112, everything's been going pretty well in here this week, in lieu of all the issues elsewhere. But you know, I really don't have too much to report on this tank this week. I haven't been able to monitor it as much as I normally do, because I've been dealing with the issues in the cube tank especially. However, we did do, like I said earlier, we did do a sump cleaning video. One thing that probably would have been interesting for you guys if I did catch it on camera, you see normally there's a wine box full of some other things here. That's not the case this week, because when I was filming the video to do the sump cleaning and all that, I accidentally overflowed my sump a little bit, but I had paused the video because I was doing something else. Long story short, it would have been some great content for you guys. Probably see another mistake that I made. Again, we're not perfect in the world of fish keeping. As Dane kind of mentioned in a comment earlier, it's kind of trial and error, and certain things do happen sometimes. I've been very fortunate over the past year that I haven't had any real issues until this week, and here we are. But so that's about all I can report on the 112 so far this week. Why don't we talk about well, actually, we could talk about one other thing before we talk about the big boy tank. For those of you that are plant buffs, we have gotten some more plants for our filtration, and I'm just kind of letting them mellow out here to get some of the nitrate out of their roots. So we have some more pothos here. We're trying to let this Draconia continue to recover, but as you can see, putting up some really nice shoots. Almost dropped all of its garbage in that sense. And we also have some more pothos here that we are doing the same thing to. And then I also got, of all the things, you know, and my wife pointed this out to me. I didn't even think about it when I got it, but if you know what this is a peace lily, and they put these they put these out with coffins and graves and things like that. So in other words, it's a death plant. And ironically enough, literally like the day that I bought that plant is when all the issues in the cube started surfacing. So, I'm not an I'm not a big believer in like omens and things like that, but it is very interesting that it kind of transpired that way, guys. Let me know in the comments below. Maybe I jinxed myself in that sense. I don't know. Eventually, though, the plan is for this peace lily to move into one of the sumps. Or maybe if I can break it up, I'll move it into both of the sumps. We'll see. So, let's go over here. And I know I mentioned it earlier in the live stream. Let's talk about what's actually beeping. So what is beeping right now is our battery bank for when the power goes out. Kind of hard to see because of this right now. But it keeps getting an overload error message, and I'm not quite sure why. I've actually removed a couple things from it. It's still getting an error message, so that's not good. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on. So, let me do something under here right fast. But this thing has been getting an overload error message when our new heater that I put on here is going out. Which, hold on. There it is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove that from the power grid for now. Our heat stays fine. These fish were without a heater for weeks in this tank, and it stayed between 79 and 81 degrees because it's been so warm outside. And it's not quite as hot anymore, so I added a new heater back in to continue with the stability of this tank. Everybody doing really well in this tank though, all the big boys, so nothing too bad to report here, guys. I put some of this pothos back. This thing, it was actually funny, I probably should have filmed a little bit of it for you, but this one, as you can see, is kind of a little bit beat up. So the other day, it was completely in the tank. I'm not quite sure how it happened. I missed it when it did happen, but they knocked the holder off of here somehow, and it actually was submerged here behind the log in these rocks. And you know, I had to dig it out yesterday when I did my water change on these tanks. Oh yeah, I love the black orange dorsal too, Dane. Thank you. Actually, we'll focus in on him here for a second. He has a really nice blue line underneath of his yellow too that you can see when he raises up his fins. But that is Vader. Obviously, I think it's pretty apparent why that fish has its name, as it is jet black. But anyways, so things have been going fairly well in this tank this week. Our Buco really getting close, probably within the top 3 fish now in the food chain. Getting some good green on him, really been fired up. What type? The black one, that's a black orange dorsal lithobate, Dane. It's a German line bred. But anyways, our Buco has been doing really good, making some moves here. As you can see, he's getting some nice green and some yellowish coloration, starting to look really nice. Which type of peacock? I'm sorry, Dane, I'm not quite sure who you're referencing at this point. Which type of peacock is he? But anyways, so, you know, the rest of the hierarchy is pretty much unchanged with one exception as well. Our hawk, which I'm looking for right now. You'd think that it would be easier to not lose fish in a tank, guys, but sometimes you'd be surprised. Where is the hawk? There he is. So he's up here near the top. Very hard to kind of see. But our Malawi hawk is really getting a lot of nice blue this past week. Like I said, him and the Buco really starting to put on some good size, making some moves in that sense. We pretty much eliminated a lot of the micro bubbles, if Dolph will get out of the way so I can show you guys, that were coming out of this FX6. I don't know if anybody saw, but at the beginning of the sump video I showed that I had cleaned this out, and this one will need to be cleaned in a couple weeks. there is a very drastic difference in water flow that if you guys haven't seen that video out, when you do check it out, you will probably notice immediately what I'm saying. But as I said the previous week, originally I thought that a small separation on this line was the issue. However, at this point, since I cleaned the tank, I'm not convinced anymore. I think the issue actually is to do with the O-ring on the bottom of this lid. It was a little bit stretched out when I took it off, so I think at this point, before I go ahead and replace that line, what I'm going to do is get an O-ring kit, put a new O-ring on there, and kind of see what the effects of it are. I don't know, guys. I've talked a lot. Do you guys have any Q&A? Does anybody want to touch upon the bad things that have happened this week? Maybe some of you other fish keepers out there might have an opinion on that. What could I have done differently, maybe? Or maybe you would have done the same thing. I don't know, guys. But again, these things do happen in this world. But we're going to continue building this gallery, moving onward and upward out of this. Hopefully we don't have anything of that nature happen again for quite some time. So I think I'm going to go ahead and finish the live stream here, guys. And I will see you. Be on the lookout this week. There'll be some updates. What's been going on with some of the other things that I want to accomplish in this gallery currently. And I think we're going to do another fish feature video this week. I elected to not do that this past week, but instead I did the fish yearbook video. All the guys that have been with me for at least a year. If you haven't seen that yet, please go check that out. And I thank you guys for all the love and support. Be on the lookout for some new content this week as always. And get ready for Sunday Swim next week, I guess, guys. So that being said, thank you for those of you that have been here before. Can't do this without you. This is because each and every one of you guys. And for those of you that are new, please like, subscribe, share, hit that notification button, and follow us along on the rest of the journey. And I will see you guys in the next video and or the next live stream. Thank you everybody for the continued support. Matty Fish out. Happy Sunday, guys.